Alright, well, welcome back. So, last time we sort of talked about, how you having difficulties communicating with your dad. Pretty much just trying to get his attention. Because every time you try to get his attention, there's always other people vying for his attention, so it sort of tears him away from you.
Yeah. Well, and I've been thinking more about my relationship with my parents lately. As you know, we're all getting older and people get sick and just different things happen. So I've been just thinking about how things have been with them over, I don't know, probably since I was in high school. And I don't know, there's been a lot of ups and downs. My mom, for a long period of time, she was being very jealous of my dad and relationships that he was having, even when they haven't been together, like in their relationship in, I don't know, 20 years or longer probably.
And she would get jealous, show signs of jealousy. How would make you feel?
Annoyed, frustrated. She would act crazy, like sit outside my dad's house at night, like a stalker. Would kind of draw inappropriate pictures, and she took one time to the person he was dating to for work and put it on the door for work. And so it was just insane, and I just couldn't believe a grown person would act in such a way, thinking that they would be more mature than that, but it was not the case.
It's like your mom took it pretty hard, this breakup and
Yeah.
dating another woman.
But yeah, I guess, but they hadn't been in a relationship in years and years and years, so it was confusing to me and frustrating, and here I am trying to, ease into adulthood, and she's acting like a crazy person, doing things that I think are just immature and irresponsible, but she didn't care. And one thing that really hurt me whenever she did all that stuff was, I expressed to her how I felt like what she was doing, and I just thought it was really inappropriate, and I didn't necessarily say I sided with my dad, but I just told her that I didn't believe what she was doing was right. And so she got really mad, and she called me a traitor, which was really hurtful because,
Sounds hurtful.
yeah, because she's the one who primarily raised me and my sisters with the help of my grandparents. My dad was always in the picture, but she was always the primary parent. And just because I didn't agree with her behavior, all of a sudden it was like all or nothing. And so I was just angry that she would think of me like that, considering I was her youngest kid and, was pretty much the last person that she'd really have to spend time with.
Did you bring up these feelings of how her calling you a traitor made you feel?
Yeah, and she didn't really care. She was angry and hurt by my dad, and so I feel like she was willing to lash out at anybody who didn't agree with her tactics, I guess. So that was crazy. That kind of started my, separation from my mom, for her being my parent and wanting to have a relationship with her for a few years.
So do you think this separation came about because of her unwillingness to consider your emotions, your attitudes to how she was treating you and treating your dad?
I don't know if it was that it's because of that specifically, but it's just the fact that I didn't agree with her, and she wanted somebody to agree with her and validate her feelings and tell her what she was doing was okay, and I didn't agree with it. And so because I didn't agree with it, that's how she responded, I guess. Or that's how I've taken it all these years. She hasn't really said differently.
And have you brought up that you've noticed that she's wanted someone to agree with her even though it's wrong?
I don't know if I ever did at the time. It's been years since all that happened, but it definitely impacted our relationship during that time frame for probably 2 or 3 years. So whenever I would try to talk with her, it was like task-oriented. I'd ask her questions about whatever was going on, and I would try to make my conversation short and not have to interact with her. So, it really
So there wasn't really an attempt to mend the bridge, you just want to make sure the bridge was still there, is that right?
Yeah, kind of. And even at that though, sometimes I just didn't care because I was so frustrated. And another like big frustrating thing is whenever I lived in a different state, you know, I was married and living in a different state with my husband, and both of my parents would call and bitch and complain about the other one and the things that they were doing or saying. And it's like, I'm 700 miles away, I'm not in the middle of anybody's drama, but they're trying to, you know, make me be in the middle of their drama. And that was just ridiculous.
How would being 700 miles away affect your relationship with your mom?
Me personally, I was happy to get away from my family and all the drama that was going on. So, although long distance and stuff really wasn't an issue as far as making phone calls and stuff, but normally if I wanted to initiate contact with anybody, it was normally me initiating contact with her. My sisters were better about calling me, and my dad would be better about calling me, but it was a lot of times if I wanted to, then I would have to initiate it. And a lot of times I didn't want to, so.
So your mom just sort of made you an afterthought, would you say?
Kind of, unless she had a specific like agenda for why she wanted to talk to me. So, and then once that need was met, then I felt like that was all I was really good for her for a while.
How did her sort of forgetting about you until she needs you make it do?
Pissed off, I guess, because I mean, but I try not to dwell on it because, you know, I was married and moved away and I was trying to go to school and work, so it's like my attention was focused on other things, but when my attention was on her in the situations, I was just really frustrated a lot of the time because it is just like, if you're going to call and talk to me, call and talk to me, don't call and talk to me, bitch, about whatever's going on, so I got really annoying.
See how that can happen, you know, someone just calling you, not to just improve relationships, but rather just to complain about the state of how things are and the decline of other relationships.
Right, yeah. So it was really frustrating. And then, you know, my dad for a while, I mean, he would kind of do the same thing about my mom, would call and complain about things she was doing or saying, and I would just sit there and listen to them both and then just like, you know, tell them, like, you know, what am I supposed to do? I'm not there, you know, and it's not my problem. And they need to figure out what they were going to do, and if they didn't want to talk to each other, don't talk to each other. You're adults, you can make that decision. And I don't know, it was just really frustrating, and it would create tension with my husband and I because I would get so frustrated with all the BS that they were having me be in the middle of, and I wasn't even there in the same, you know, area code to deal with it. And so I'd be frustrated because of that, and my husband would get frustrated with me for, I guess, allowing them to put me in the middle of it. So.
You think frustration stems from an acting immature?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and a lot of the times I felt like I'm their kid, but I'm acting more of the adult than they are. And I felt like that. I still feel like that a lot of the time, actually, but it is what it is, and you can't change other people, so you just have to learn to work with it.
So would you say when people don't fulfill their roles, that frustrates you?
Sometimes. I mean, I guess if I have certain expectations and I feel like they're not meeting them when they know they're supposed to be and they just are doing something else, then yeah, that can frustrate me. It doesn't happen with everybody, but I think more with family or really close friends because there's been that bond and relationship established for such a long period of time.
Right, so it's like, if it's in your family and people aren't fulfilling the roles, then that frustrates you. But
Yeah.
if it's anything outside of family, like work related, does that not frustrate you? Or does it frustrate you to the same degree, or?
It doesn't frustrate me to the same degree. I just work the situation the best I can on my end, and the pieces will fall however they fall, and other people don't do their part. So, but I don't know. I mean, and also I guess with my family, it's like if I get frustrated and I feel like that they're not doing their part, I'll just kind of separate myself from them until I feel like I can talk with him and not be angry or frustrated or come off being bitchy or something, so.
So have you ever voiced your frustrations to either of your parents? Like, the way they act? And how that makes you feel?
Yeah, more my mom than my dad. And I don't know why that is. I feel like part of it might be because my dad, the whole time growing up, and even more as an adult now, that he'll have a voice that he was not a good parent, he knows that he was a shitty parent, and he's, I don't know, trying to do what he can to make a good relationship as an adult. And so I feel like he already thinks that about himself, and so if I guess add to that, I feel like that it might make things worse for him. And with my mom, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I don't take her feelings into consideration and I just say it because I don't care.
When your dad voices how he was a shitty parent and stuff like that, how does that make you feel?
Well, I agree with it. I don't necessarily tell him I agree with it because I don't want him to feel worse. And I don't know. That's just kind of how I am with some people. I just don't want to. I'd rather just take on the crappy side of it. That way, it doesn't, other people's feelings don't get hurt a lot of times. But it's, I don't know. It's just hit and miss with different people, I guess.
So the reason why you don't voice your frustrations to your father about how he and your mom interact is because you don't want him to make him feel worse about not being as good of a father. Is that correct?
When I was younger, now like they don't really talk about each other just because my dad's married and has his own life and family and kids, and my mom's doing her own thing. So it's not so much of an issue now with them like talking about each other or expressing frustration, but when they would do that, it was pretty intense. Did I answer your question?
So I guess I got another question. Do you think that the relationship between your mom and your dad would have been improved, I guess, way back then, a lot sooner, if you had challenged your dad and said, hey, I know this is going to make you feel bad, but how you and mom are interacting is really making me frustrated?
I don't know if it would have made any difference. I feel like I know my dad pretty well, and he's a very outspoken person and can be very stubborn. And I could also get really defensive about it and then just not talk about it for a long time and just kind of try to brush it off, and which I kind of get that because I kind of do that sometimes too. I have a voice to both of them in the past about how they were acting. I think I've just been more vocal to my mom about it because I didn't agree with a lot of decisions she was making. So they've both been aware, but I think my mom's been maybe more aware than my dad.
Do you think it's fair to make your mom more aware of your frustrations than you did?
No, but that's just how I went about it. Now that stuff really doesn't impact me as much. I've had to, really take time. I think with the distance that I've had between my parents, with living in a different state or living in a different country for so many years, I think has helped me gain some perspective, I guess, in the situation. And just realize, that I can't control what they do or say or act, and I just have to accept them for how they are, and, they're already set in their ways, and I just take it as it comes.
So seeing as how you have different ways of what you're willing to disclose to your mom and your dad, do you see how your mom could maybe have a point that you might be a little bit of a traitor?
Well, I don't think I'm a traitor.
Seeing as how, you let your mom have it more than you let your dad have it.
I can see how she would feel hurt that I would maybe side with my dad. her explanation at that time was because she was a primary parent. She was the one always paying our bills, buying our clothes, you know, taking care of everything. And our dad would pay or not pay child support, just depending on whatever growing up. And because she was always a primary parent, working 2 jobs and getting help from my grandparents to take care of us, and then all of a sudden she started acting a certain way and I didn't agree with it, and then all of a sudden on my dad's side, I can see her feeling hurt because she feels like that was my loyalty switched, but it's not that I don't believe that it switched, it's just I didn't agree with her decisions that she was making, and if my dad would have, if it would have been, the situation would have been opposite and my dad would have acted the same way, I would have said the same thing to him because it was just insane. It was just insane.
So how is your relationship with your mom now?
It's a lot better, I would say. You know, I actually talked to her earlier today, just for a few minutes, because she called just to check and see how I'm doing, and she'll like randomly text sometimes and just kind of check on me. I feel like I've learned to become more tolerant with her and patient, because there's, you know, still a lot of things that go on in her life that I'm just like, what are you doing? But, you know, again, I can't control it, and I think that, like, this year my grandma passed away, and so, and it was her mom, and so I feel like that situation kind of brought our family a little bit closer, just because it seems like when somebody dies, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, let's connect and be, I don't know, better with one another or whatever, so, I feel like that's kind of played a role a little bit in our relationship with her, but I know that since I moved back from Germany in 2012, that she's wanted to be a more active part of my life than whenever, you know, I lived here before moving and things like that. So I feel like it's better, and I get along with her better, and I can spend time with her, and I don't get frustrated like I used to.
How willing are you to be more active with her?
I mean, willing enough, I guess. I just know that, like, a lot of times it's like a conflict of schedule. Either I'm at work or she's at work, and the times that we have off don't normally coincide together. And, you know, I live in Broken Arrow, and then she lives like in way west Tulsa, so it's like we don't live close to each other, so I gotta drive all the way across the city, but it's always me, the one who's making the commute, because she struggles financially with different things, and so if I want to see her, I have to be the one to pick up the effort.
How does it make you feel knowing that you're the one that's to initiate and put forth the effort?
Frustrated, because she's had, ever since I was little, she's always had issues financially, being able to manage her money well and make smart financial decisions, and so because I've made really decent decisions, I think, as far as that goes, since I've been an adult, and being married, you know, I have a little bit more flexibility in what I can do with my money, and so, you know, it's like if she needs to do something, she has to plan everything out, like for her whole week, about how far she's going to be, like, traveling, or where she's going to be going, and how much gas costs, to make sure that she can have enough money to do what she needs to. And for me, I can just go and do whatever, and, you know, I don't have that issue.
So would you say it frustrates you that you've made better decisions with your money and she hasn't?
That definitely is something. And, you know, I've offered to help her, like, because she's talked about, like, going back to school sometimes. And I've offered to help her figure out what she wants to do with that, since I'm very familiar with how to, you know, search for schools and classes and financial aid and all that stuff. And so I've offered to her several times that if she wants to do that, then I'll come over, and she just needs to tell me, like, what it is that she's looking for, and I can help her, you know, look for schools or certification programs or whatever that could accommodate that, because, you know, she graduated high school, she's never gone to college, she's always been in, like, customer service she worked at JCPenney's for a long time, retired from there, and she's worked at Home Depot, and she's worked at a Hallmark store for a long time, so it's just always been stuff like that. It's never like gone to any like school, get a certification or anything, so she could have a better job.
And has she taken you up on this offer yet?
No.
How does that make you feel?
Even more frustrated when she's like, oh, I don't have money for this. And it's like, well, I told you I would help you do this to try to help in that area, you know, and she doesn't. Or sometimes I would like take the time if I'm like I'm not doing anything and like look through the newspaper or look online for like job postings. That could be something that she would need because her health isn't so great, and so she kind of has to, there's needing to make some changes as far as the type of job she can do and need to be able to have like a sit-down job. And so I haven't done it recently, but I have done it since I've been back from Germany. A lot of times looking through stuff and letting her know, and I'll text her or call her like, hey, this place is hiring this, you should apply. And what happens from that, I don't know.
How does she usually respond when you say, hey, here are some jobs that I think you might
She's
be
receptive,
accepted?
but I don't know if she ever does anything about it. And so I feel like I'm doing my part to help, but if she continues to not do anything about it, then that's not anything I have control over.
Is there anybody you can bring in for this sort of situation, help give her a push in the right direction?
Probably not, because I'm the most motivated person in my family besides my grandpa. And my grandpa does what he can to help her. He's done that her whole life and has helped her financially if she's needed it. So probably not.
You think her grandpa helping her financially has encouraged her to be more hardworking and independent, or do you think it's been more like a crutch that's holding her back?
I don't think it's necessarily a crutch, because my mom will like have gotten into a situation, and at that point, once she's already there and made the poor choices that got her in the poor situation, then my grandpa has stepped in and like, okay, like I will help with what I can. And sometimes it's panned out. I would say most of the time it hasn't panned out, and so my grandpa has been out hundreds of dollars at just different points trying to help her with different things. And at some point she's been able to pay back that money over the years, but she just gets herself in those positions a lot and has to figure out a way to get out of it. And a lot of the time it's my grandpa stepping in to help her.
You think that she gets into those positions because she knows that grandpa's going to be there to help save her?
No, I don't think so. Or I would hope not. I would hope not, because my grandpa's too old to deal with all that. But no, she's just never been good with her money, ever. Ever. My whole life, I don't remember one time where she was like, things were going well, and we could get what we wanted, and have extra money to do stuff. I don't ever remember a time like that.
You ever thought about sitting her down and showing her these are good financial decisions and these aren't, like this is stuff you need to have money aside for because you need this stuff, and this stuff you don't?
I have thought about that kind of stuff before, but she just, I think part of it is she just doesn't make a lot of money to be able to, do things. Like she makes enough to pay her bills. Like when she retired from JCPenney, she had to retire early. It was kind of a big thing with them, but she had to retire early. And so she didn't get her full retirement, and so she doesn't get very much from them. And then, she works at Home Depot. I don't know what she makes an hour, but it's not like she's making, a ton of money. And as her health has declined, she's had to cut back her hours. So I think she works part-time. And so she's just getting by, and so with her not having a whole lot of money, she's put in these situations to where she doesn't necessarily live in good parts of town a lot of the times, and so that worries me because of her environment that she's in, like what could happen to her. And even her current house where she's been living at, somebody busted a window at her house and somebody tried to break in her front door. So that like really worries me about her. Because I'm like, what are you doing? You can't live out there. Nobody's around you to help. And so I get really worried about her sometimes and with her health and just the kind of position she can be in.
Is it a possibility to have her maybe move in with Grandma?
She has done that a lot as an adult actually when when I was in high school, 8th grade through me getting married and moving out the house. Like I lived there and then we moved there in middle school. No, I was, I think middle school. And then she moved out at some point in high school because she got a house and I didn't go with her. I stayed with my grandpa. And then whenever she's been in financial binds and she can't afford it anymore, her own house or whatever, she's moved back with my grandpa a lot of times. So I mean, my grandpa doesn't really want that, but he is always willing to accommodate that if necessary.
Does Grandma have anybody helping him out? So, is Grandpa in good health?
I would say absolutely for somebody who's almost 85 years old, yeah.
So there's no assistance he's needing around the house?
No, he does everything. Like a few years ago, he re-roofed his house. He changes his own oil. He mows his own lawn. He's like a mechanic for himself. He's like very self-sufficient.
Sounds like he's going to live forever.
I hope so. Oh my gosh, that'll be a sad day. Yeah.
So there's no possibility that Grandma's ever going to need assistance from your mom? Is that right?
No, because he's in better health than she is, as far as that kind of stuff goes, and she's not really able to offer assistance much at all to people.
If you could get your mom back in school, what do you think you would steer her towards?
I don't know. She likes animals, so maybe something to do with animals, vet assistant or something, I don't know. I mean, she likes that. She's not good with money, so nothing to do with accounting. I don't know. She's good at art, but, you know, at her age, that's not something that's going to do her any good. So I would maybe do something like in the veterinary field, maybe.
So do you think that pushing towards veterinary school would be a good idea? Is that practical, do you think?
An optimistic side of me wants to say yes, but her age is a factor. You know, she's in her 60s, you know, and with so many jobs nowadays wanting to be able to hire younger people or people who have experience in that field, you know, those things are against her, you know. And like I said, she's been doing customer service related stuff for, you know, 45 years.
Seeing as it might be a little awkward that a 60-year-old lady in a room full of maybe 18,
Right.
20-year-olds might be a better,
Yeah.
it might be kind of awkward.
For her, I mean, yeah, and like I said, her health plays a big role. She has a hard time standing for long periods of time, and you know, she has bad back, and bad ankle, and lots of other things physically. So it's just like, I don't know. She's like, it's like a catch-22. Like, I want to be able to help her find something, but then there's a lot of things with her age and her health that work against her to be able to help her anyway.
You said she used to work as in customer service related fields.
Mm-hmm.
You ever thought about maybe pushing her towards like one of those call center jobs? Because I know they sit down like pretty much all the time.
Right,
They
yeah.
sit at
Which
the
that would be
phone.
helpful. She's not super computer literate. She kind of gets by, so she would need, I think, computer classes first before she'd be able to even be successful in that kind of area.
You know much about computers?
Enough to do what I have to do in life. My husband is pretty good with computers, but my mom's brother, my uncle, he's an IT person, so he could teach her anything she needs to know about it. My grandpa, computers. Him and my uncle actually used to have their own, well, I think they still do, but their own business where they do like computer programming and drafting and rendering and things like that. So my grandpa's pretty computer literate for somebody who's almost 85. So he teaches her what he knows, and my uncle could help out too.
So you think there would be a possibility to bring up your uncle that your mom needs help with computers if she's trying to go into a field where she might need those skills?
I could always bring it up to him, but I know that he's always super busy with work because he has like an office job that he goes to and works 40 plus hours a week. I don't think it's ever just 40 hours a week. And then at night, since he contracts doing computer programming and rendering and drafting and all that stuff, at night he's normally doing his contract job, doing that stuff. Or on the weekends, he'll be working 16, 18-hour days, sometimes getting work in so they can have it by their deadline for his contract job. So
Maybe it would be possible to have her be like a shadow, like his intern, like a ride along.
I don't know.
And just maybe learn through osmosis.
I don't know. I never considered that. So maybe.
Because it sounds like you're saying that your mom has a lot of time on her hands.
She can.
Because she only works part-time. So
Yeah.
it seems to me like it would be feasible to ever just tag along.
Maybe. And again, that also comes back to, I think it would be really beneficial for her, but then that would also come back to having to drive to my uncle's house. And that takes money and gas.
Right.
And he doesn't live close to her. He lives closer to me than he does her. And it comes back to that a lot.
It seems like once again we are at an impasse.
Yes. Story of my life with her.
Well, I guess to wrap up, it seems like, your relationship with your mom was pretty rocky when they split, It seems like it's gotten better over the years, and now the main focus is just, trying to get her more financially stable. It seems like we have options here, which are, to send her back to school, or maybe try and work a call center job, but difficulties arise around that. Are to teach her the skills necessary to go for a job like that.
Yeah.
And getting the teacher is also another problem in itself with money required to drive to somebody's house to learn.
Correct. That sounds pretty accurate now.
Well, thanks for calling in.
Thanks for having me.